Greetings again to everyone, and thank you for attending the seminar today. Please note we will be recording it so that we can make it available for others who are not able to join us at this time. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to put them into the chat window, and I hope that at the end of the presentation there will be some time to answer those questions or others that you may like to ask at the end. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Gustavo Teixeira, from Module 4 of the Excellence in Breeding Platform. He will be presenting an update, as you can see, about breeding operations and phenotyping. Gustavo studied agricultural engineering and received his bachelor's and master's from the Universidade Federal de Lavras in Brazil, and was also awarded an MBA from FGV. After finishing his studies, Gustavo worked at a few companies and spent a year as a professor at a university in Brazil before starting a position at Syngenta in 2012. He worked there for over 7 years and then joined the Excellence in Breeding team in July of 2018 as the automation and mechanization lead based at the CIMMYT headquarters in Mexico. I look forward to hearing his update today and thank Gustavo for agreeing to present in this seminar. So, Gustavo?
Thanks, Kate. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon all. Okay, so thanks for this invite, Kate. It's a pleasure. I put some slides. Let me know if you can see when I change the slides, Kate, okay? Can you see that now?
Yes, yep. Thank you.
Okay, so first, a bit of this background of the progress from our module 4, the EiB module 4. So initially, the breeding operations and phenotyping module was only called as phenotyping, and it was early 2017 when we started the EiB. Vincent Vedes was leading that as a part-time, and the main focus on that time was, as I said, phenotyping. And he had some initiatives on drones and organized a workshop in 2017 also. In July 2018, when I joined, basically, I joined because of this demand to change from phenotyping to more than phenotyping, also including some everything that would be related to phenotyping as breeding operations. And we continue. This phenotyping is still an important component, but we have other areas that is part of the scope too. So in 2018, we organized a workshop in ICRISAT regarding quality, nutritional traits, quality analysis for phenotyping. In October 18, we launched the structure for the breeding operations and phenotyping assessment, and we've been working with that since then, and I will explain a bit more. So here is just a bit of things that we have done. So I will go to the following slides that I think that would be more important. Basically, we have 3 pillars on our module. One pillar is breeding operations. The other is phenotyping, the action of phenotyping, and the other one is continuous improvement. The first, breeding operations. I will explain how we are, what we have done, and the priorities and things that we need to do. In breeding operations, as I said, we launched our breeding operations assessment. We covered in this assessment 5 areas. First area is the, sorry, can you hear me? It's okay.
We can hear you every once in a while. The sound fades out a little bit, at least for me, but in general, I can hear you at least.
Okay, so breeding operations assessment, we cover 5 areas. First, agronomic practice. Second, seed processing, planting, phenotyping, planting and harvesting, phenotyping, and continuous improvement. Here is missing one more, that's planting and harvesting. And for each one of these, we have subcategories as well. So just an example, in agronomic practice, we cover field preparation, fertility, irrigation and the weather data, farm management system, how the stations, how the breeders or the station management team, they manage the station, greenhouse and controlled environment. And this is just an example for agronomic practice. But as I said, for each one of these different categories, we have subcategories. And what we do is we visited the stations and we working together with the teams from the stations. We rank from basic, from marginal to cutting edge. I mean, we classify, we rank, how we are based on our experience, based on discussion that what the current status for each one of that subcategories. And these helped us to define what we need to do and what would be the priorities. Of course, this is not the only one source of information, but it definitely helped us to define our strategy. Since we launched that in 2018, we conducted approximately 25 assessments. Here's just an example where from agronomic practice, the current status of CGIAR, where we are in CGIAR currently, and what we expect from to be in private sector to be. And it doesn't really mean that the CG needs to be here. It's based on demand. It's just to a comparison. So again, based on these things here, based on the ranking, we had understood that 4 priorities or 4 things that we would need to do. First, we would need to implement the support network that I explained a little bit more. We need to have irrigation. There's a huge demand for improving irrigation, improving soil management, and we need to continue this work of to assess the capacity of these stations. The first thing that this mechanization support network, we understood the need to have currently in CG system, there's and also national programs, there's a lack of these specialists.
Sorry, Gustavo, the sound is fading out a little bit for me. I'm not sure if that's a challenge for others as well, but.
Okay, I'm trying to speak louder and closer to the microphone.
Yes, it's very difficult to hear you, Gustavo. Maybe if you get very close to the mic, I don't know if you're wearing a headset or not.
Okay, can you hear me now better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the mechanization, as I said, in CG system and national program, there's a lack of this capacity, or at least for breeding programs. There's some, but not really supporting breeding. And we understood that perhaps it's because the need or the demand for the center per se is not really, does not justify to have a specialist. And we propose to create this support network that would be some specialists that would help centers and national programs within a region to implement things on soil preparation, tractors, or to cover this mechanization area. And we have announced these positions, 2 positions, one for West Africa and one for East Africa, that will work with us and within this region to implement these, to improve the adoption of mechanization and automation in this area, in this region. So the expected output from these is to have a clear inventory of machines in the region, also helping the centers and national programs to have a more professional acquisition plan for machines. One thing that we understood that this needs to be improved. Also maintenance plan, we understood that this also needs to be improved. Implementing helping the centers, and we've seen many good machines that people are not using because they don't have train or they cannot, they were not commissioned properly. And also how to share machines within region, not really, because perhaps there are some idle capacity machines that could be shared. And we believe that this is something that this support network, they will help. How to work with irrigation. We understood these based on our assessment and based on the prioritization we defined together with centers. These centers, IITA in Ibadan in Nigeria, Ikene, Kano in Nigeria as well, CIMIT and ICRISAT in Kiboko in Musarabani in Zimbabwe, ICRISAT in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, and ICRISAT in Bamako, Mali. They would be, based on our discussions with the centers, priority stations that they would need to have a proper irrigation system installed. We are in the process to hire the engineering company to design the proper system for these stations. We are in the process, now we are with the procurement to hire this engineering company. And just an upgrade on how we are with this process. The soil management is another area that, as I said, was identified as a priority. And we have a plan. We hired 2 consultants to visit the stations and define with them the roadmap for improvement of these soil conditions and also the management. How to manage properly the soil in these stations. We have seen erosion, we have seen the trials with not really well managed. However, given this COVID-19 situation, we had to, I wouldn't say deprioritize, but we had to postpone our visit. We are now focusing more on Kenya because one of the consultants is based there, and will be easier to go to these stations rather than going to all other stations. Another area, okay, so in soil management, we have one part that is going to these priority stations and helping them to define proper management plan. And the other area that we will be working is to develop training materials that will be available in the toolbox, the EiB toolbox. And this is we are working with these consultants to develop these materials as well. We have, of course, a roadmap for doing that, and this, but this is dependent also on the travels and things that we'll need to visit. The other area, okay, so we, as I said, we also need to continue this assessment and review assessment. This is one thing that we will need to do. So our goal for this year is to deliver the soil management and irrigation plan for these priority stations. So have a clear process for training staff in soil management, and structures to have this support network implemented to support centers to adopt mechanization. After these implemented from 2021 on, we want to increase this support network to Asia and also Americas, and improve our support in other areas such as code rooms and seed processing. Okay, so this would be the first area. The second area, as I said, is phenotyping. In phenotyping, we have three main areas. One is digitization. The other one is grain quality and nutrition, or nutritional traits and nutritional analysis. The other one is remote sensing and image analysis. First one, digitization. In 2018, we had the annual meeting in the EiB annual meeting. One of the sessions we had, we discussed what would be the priority devices that we would need to increase the adoption. And they decided that the package printers, seed counters, label printers, laser printers, handhelds, and also barcode readers would be the first priorities, the 6 first priorities. And early last year, we ran a survey asking which would be the priority or the preferred solutions. And some we had response from almost all centers. And late last year, from this Crop to End Hunger project, we indicated this could be a project, and it was approved. And this year we fine-tuned the demand, and we are now in the process to acquire this number of equipment that you can see in the screen. Our goal is to deliver this run to all the priority centers and priority programs, priority crops, not all, but priorities, and will be delivered. We expect to deliver that, of course, depends on this COVID-19 also, by the end of this year. Okay, so after running that, we expect to have similar approach to other devices, such as these weighing seeds and other devices as well. So the other topic that is important for breeding for our module is the grain quality and nutritional traits. As I said, Vincent Vedes, he organized some workshops for this area. One of the output from these workshops is that we would need to have someone dedicated to this work, and that's why we hired part-time. This is not really a FTE, it's just a part-time, working with us to define for each one of the priority crops. Our goal is to have similar approach as the genotyping, to have service with vendors, and also sharing best practices and the standardized protocols and calibration curves for NIRs. This process, we are still in the early stage, given we hired this person this year, and we expect by the end of this year we will have at least for 2 or 3 crops this service available for them. This is another area we are working now, is drones. In fact, we are not really working with drones. What we started, we had some workshops too in the last 2 years, and there's to understand what would be the priorities to move in this area. One thing that we decided is, first thing what we need to do is to have the SOP on how to acquire image acquisition, or how to get the picture this case would be drones. And then we hired now it's available in the EiB toolbox, the SOP for that, which equipment to use or how to get the image. But only the image does not guarantee that we will have the proper analysis. And we are now in the process to define the image processing pipeline. We expect to have kind of software as a service. We hire a company to run the process the image, and the breeders, they would only take the pictures and upload the pictures, and the company would run the analysis and send the input.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is that for specific traits?
So now we are in the process to define the pipeline for some crops and the priority traits for that crops. We still don't have defined which would be the traits, and neither which we have defined the crops, and we will start that with the crops that would work with the run in ICRISAT in India. Based on that, we expect to define the pipeline for other crops too, and defining the traits. Okay, it's our idea is to define with the priority traits based on breeding, for each one of the priority crops, we will need to discuss with the breeders which would be the priority traits, and then discuss or define if this is something that can be done using this technology. Now we are in the process to define this pipeline. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Well, my concern would be sort of starting from, let's get image analysis up and running, and then after that, let's decide what we're going to do with it. I think the major companies have very specific use cases for which traits they capture. It might be better to sort of go with the use case first, and then figure out how to implement it.
Yeah, we have some things that we know that would already benefit, something like this standard counting or
yeah, for sure.
So there are things that we know that is plant height. So we know that there are things that can be done. What we want to achieve is at the end to have. We want to avoid this research and developing things and parallel things. We want to create a pipeline. At the end, if you want to use any kind of image using drones, you just need to have the algorithm or just implement. This is taking the pictures and make an agreement with this company or other company that can to use that algorithm. Okay, it's something that we want to have just a pipeline. Just say this is collect the picture and upload the picture to this system, and if this trait is available, the analysis, and simply send that to them and have the process.
This is Gustavo. This is Tom, to kind of piggyback on Gary. I mean, I was one of the principal scientists for remote sensing at Pioneer, and I just want to say that it's a very challenging effort to create an appropriately scaled image acquisition and processing pipeline, and there's many decision points that you face in doing that. But still, I agree with Gary, getting a reliable image acquisition processing pipeline going is a first step. Developing traits is even more that are actionable, that you can use to make a breeding decision is even more challenging. So I think we should proceed, but at the same time, you know, the magnitude of the effort and the complexity of the effort is quite large. And so I think we should go into it with our eyes wide open.
Definitely, Tom. We step by step, I agree. We are taking a step here that was decided within the workshops that we had. I mean, it's not only a decision that was taken by myself or by Vincent. We had a workshop, we invited people, they discussed it together, and this is important. Having the SOP to acquire a picture, and then having the pipelines, and then, but definitely I agree, and this is one area that we would need to work together, especially with module 5, because given one of the output we expect from this company is to receive the data. No, definitely it's the data, and how this data will integrate with the EBS or any other breeding system. So this is an area that we will need to talk more. Okay, can I continue? Any more question here, Tom?
Please continue. I just wanted to make a comment. Obviously, having involved discussion is not the purpose of your presentation. You're just trying to introduce to us what's happening.
Yep. Okay. So let's keep moving. So our goal, increase the adoption of this digitization device for this year. The define demand and for having the contract or starting this process for nutritional analysis. And define this roadmap for drone for this drone project. So from 2021, so process. We would like to have this more cost benefit analysis for phenotyping. Depends on the trait and analysis for capacity as well. So what? Looking into the cost, and so there are things that the breeding programs they do based only on research, not really on the demand for the development. So what we would like to work more on that. So this moving with this image acquisition with the vendors, and also increase the adoption of this service for nutritional traits. So the other pillar, as I said, continuous improvement. So what we have here, we have CGIAR, we have national programs, funders, they demand for breeding programs, the product profiles, and variety development that would be later the breeding scheme and genotyping, phenotyping. And these will define the KPIs for them to what they need to achieve, how to, or I mean, from this to satisfy this group here, or would be how efficiently they achieve that, how efficiently achieve the goal. So these would be the KPIs. And what we believe is that these in order to these KPIs to be effective, these group managers, breeding teams, and the operational team, they need to continue improve. They need to, in order to do that, they need to learn lean practices. And of course, there's a cost component. In module 4, we cover these two areas. One thing is cost, and another thing is lean or training in lean techniques.
Gustavo, the sound is fading a little bit again, at least for me.
Okay, sorry. So just again, in module 4, we cover cost and lean techniques, training this group in lean techniques, and we have a strategy for costing or supporting breeding programs to have their costs defined. In continuous improvement, or we have two, as I said, costing and lean or continuous improvement training. So first, continuous improvement. We had one workshop here in CIMMYT last year, and we starting also projects with EiB this year, and developing e-learning materials this year. So this is for this year. In costing, we start supporting EiB and CIMMYT maize in Africa. Yeah, this would be also for CIMMYT other than Africa, but we are working more with CIMMYT in Africa. Both supporting them to implement or to have the cost defined. Our idea is to have the costing per breeding pipeline, and also to define or to develop a structure to have this cost, a more sustainable process for calculating this cost per pipeline. Currently is using Excel's. I'm not against Excel, of course, but this is not really there's no process. I mean, there's no database or neither software or not. It's something that someone calculate and they keep in their own under their own control. It's not really a structure for the organization, and we are working now with them to define. Okay, so training for continuous improvement. What our idea is working with the centers, identifying critical projects, and working with the centers in critical projects to applying these methods, 5Ys, 5S, value stream map, critical to quality, critical to client, and others, to work with to improve that specific projects. This will help them to improve that project or to achieve that project, but also to create the culture. And then, well, of course, we have this e-learning training and other materials that we are developing and helping them to implement this culture. This is for what we are working now. So this is an example of this, working with different tools and how to implement these projects. This was impacted a lot with this COVID-19, because there are many interactions that need to be, we were planning to do face-to-face, and now we need to change to virtual interactions. We're still developing on how to do that. So our goal is, as I said, CIMMYT, continue, they started the projects, but the project should be delivered this year. EiB, we need to train the staff on the lean methodology. We develop the e-learning materials, and EiB and CIMMYT, Maize Africa, having the pipeline for the costing pipeline, the costing for each one of their pipelines. So this is our goal for this year. For next year on, we want to have other centers trained in lean methodologies, much more in the e-learning. That's why we are developing the learning materials. And the process that we implement that we develop with EiB and CIMMYT, we want to implement in other centers for costing. Okay, so this is what I had to present. I don't know if I tried to be concise. I don't know if it was what you were expecting. If you have any questions, comments.
Thank you, Gustavo, for an excellent presentation. And I invite anyone who's on the call to unmute if they'd like to ask any questions.
Yes, this is Malaku from IITA. Can I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask Gustavo to give us a little more information about these drone vendors in Africa. I have some information a little bit in Southern Africa. Do they have presence in West Africa, or what is the future like? Can you give us more information? Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so in fact, this the vendor is not really. It's based in Europe and has office in different parts. I'm not sure where they are in Africa, but this is much more as a cloud-based service. And we are now not really in the implementation phase. We are just designing the pipeline for these. What would be the process? What would be? How would be and understanding the constraints on uploading the pictures? What would need to be considered? It's just a small project. It's not really a huge project. Something that we are working together with the big data platform and also Synit Base on this project. Okay, it's the first help us to develop this the business case for piloting and deployment. It's just a first step of this process. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from any of the other participants?
Hi, this is Gary from Seattle. Gustavo, one of the big bottlenecks I see in the general modernization of CG research operations is in most centers, you don't have one empowered person in a leadership position to be your partner in developing these processes. EiB has had one for a number of years now, and it led to a complete redesign and centralization of their line development, phenotyping, and seed management processes, and probably at their main station, at any rate, tripled their plot throughput, maybe more. Do you have an effective partner to implement process improvement, station upgrading, you know, at other centers in the CG system?
Yeah. Yes. One thing we have different centers. They have different ways of work. Definitely in EiB it's easier because these operations is centralized, and they have they have a replacement for, they had replaced this position that's now Sharifa, and it simplifies the work, of course. In ICRISAT, they started and implemented that. This is an early stage, but there's some task on that. In IITA, we are working with them to hire one position for that would be similar, not really centralized, but would be a similar position. And in CIMIT is another center that, even though they don't have decentralized, but they, especially in Africa, the teams, they have really the good mindset for that. So they have a good station that they follow as an example, as Naivasha, for instance, and also good team in Zimbabwe. So I think there's different ways of work. The thing that we believe more that we need to, that's why what we are working with EiB now is the problem is not really if you have someone or not. It's much more the culture of continuous improvement, to identify the bottlenecks, identify where you want to improve. This is the problem, because we have seen many equipment that is really good equipment that they are not using. And the question is why? Because they were not, the equipment was not, the process was not properly defined. I mean, or mechanized, a bad process is not a really good thing to do. So improve the process, define the bottlenecks, and then you can improve. So we believe that the problem is much more on the culture, on how to define the bottlenecks that need to be implemented. So did I answer your question, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I worked in that system for a long time, and I agree with you, but there is also, generally speaking, no systems in place for support for automation, digitization, and mechanization for most programs. It's really left to the scientists and their technicians to drive these processes. And the big change at EiB was that a system was put in place that the scientists did not directly manage. They were the clients of that system. And so nothing was purchased.
I agree with you.
You know, we need maintenance. There's huge amounts of unused equipment, but this is often because it was nobody's responsibility to maintain it. Now, I agree, part of it is because some of that equipment was bought without a clear enough plan for how to leverage it in operations. But some just, the skills to maintain and use just were not kept up.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we are proposing this support network. The support network, what we first envision then in the future is not now currently the way we propose is to have something that would be reporting to EiB in the beginning, but we want to create this to develop how will be that in the future, because needs to be something that would go to the centers. The centers, they need to have this structure that you mentioned, and we believe that would be something this would come from the support network. It's something that not because they would their justification is, oh, we don't have demand for that. I disagree, but anyway, we thought that would be a good way to start is implementing this support network, and they would work as a community, work more in this sharing equipment and working within a region rather than just based on the center demand. You understand what I mean, Gary? It's something that's one CGIAR, something like that. Yeah. We believe the support network this would be the scope of this support network person.
Yep.
Do we have any other questions from the participants?
Hi Gustavo, this is Rajiv Gupta from Equisat, India.
How are you? How are you doing?
Good, very nice seminar, man. Thank you. So I think it's more of a comment which Gary and Tom already mentioned about using these drones and these imaging things. So I was also part of this team what Tom was mentioning, when I was in Pioneer. Yeah, definitely we collect tons of data, and in most cases we can't use that data. I think we have to start again with the trades, like for example, stay green is very good trade we used to measure with remote sensing, and that was workable. I think for each crop we have to find those one or two trades where we can use this. Otherwise, just for sake of taking pictures, we can use drones, but I think we have to think about that. Just a comment. Thank you very much.
I agree. And this was my scope in the Syngenta, and one of the things that I had with them and that time we implemented the same approach. And we sit with the breeders and they discuss, what would, and they wanted everything. And at the end, we realized they needed, was just a few things. I mean, the biggest thing to do, or the most important things to do, is the breeders, they need really to define the traits that they need to measure that would add value for that breeding pipeline. And then we can define the strategy to measure. This is not really define the technology. It's something, what would one need to be measured? And then here in this project for drone, we want just to create the pipeline for that process. Yeah. Thanks for your comment. Yeah, I agree.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, if not, then I will thank Gustavo very much again for his presentation. We will be working to upload this to the seminar series site so that anyone who was not able to attend will be able to see it. And we'll be having a seminar coming up in May that we will be sending an announcement about hopefully soon. But if anyone else would like to present, or if you know of any colleagues that would like to share in this seminar series, please have them send us a message so that we can hear about exciting updates from various different partners. But thank you very much again, Gustavo, and thank you to everyone for attending.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for this opportunity. If anyone has comments, suggestion, or would like to talk more about any of these topics I mentioned, please feel free to, my email is here, but anyway, contact me, contact Kate, and she can share my mail. Yeah, thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.